What's up, y'all? You're watching Season 2, Episode 18 of Second and 15, a Philadelphia Eagles fan podcast presented by Old City Sports Network, the best network for all your Philadelphia sports needs. This is your host, Michael Roscoe. After a nerve-wracking game against divisional foe Washington, the Birds scored 20 unanswered points to make one hell of a fourth quarter comeback. We'll recap that game, including the positives and the negatives, as well as look into the Week 12 Sunday Night Football matchup versus the Los Angeles Rams. Without wasting any time, let's dive right into this quick recap of last week's win. All right, I know this game was a week ago, so I'll be quick with this one. First score of the game came with 3.5 minutes left in the first quarter, with Brian Robinson Jr. of the Commanders getting a rushing touchdown, putting Washington up 7-0. With 19 seconds left in the second quarter, Jake Elliott, after missing 2 field goals, we'll talk about that later on, nails a 21-yard chip shot to cut the lead by 4. 4 minutes into the third quarter, Commanders kicker Zane Gonzalez nails a 45-yard kick, bringing it back to a 7-point game. After a huge passing catch to Saquon Barkley, this would set up another Jake Elliott field goal, making the score 10-6 Commanders on top. Now, taking it all the way to the fourth quarter, because this is where things got interesting. With about 12 minutes left in the quarter, Saquon should have had a touchdown, but they mark him short at the 1-yard line, leading to a Jalen Hurts brotherly shove touchdown. But Jake Elliott's kicking woes continue as he missed the extra point, and the score becomes 12-10. Birds take their first lead of the night. After a spectacular performance from the Eagles' rush defense, the Birds force a turnover on downs in Eagles territory. Hurts Goddard combined for a big game, but Goddard fumbles the ball after getting it knocked out of the hands by a defender. But when one tight end struggles, there's always another one there ready to help, as our tight end 2, Grant Calcaterra, comes up with a huge fumble recovery. This would lead to a 3rd and 3 on the Commanders' 23-yard line. Hurts hands off to Barkley, who has a ton of room up the right side and goes untouched into the end zone. Birds extend the lead 19-10 with under 5 minutes left in the game. Things would only get better for the Birds in these next few minutes. The very next play after the touchdown, Washington quarterback Jaden Daniels steps back, fires a pass from his own 30-yard line, and it is intercepted by safety Reed Blankenship at the Washington 46-yard line. This is Reed's 3rd interception on the year. 2nd and 3 from the Washington 39-yard line. Another handoff to Barkley, who finds an open hole, and he is just gone, getting into the end zone for his 2nd touchdown of the night. Birds extend their lead 26-10 with 4.5 minutes left in the game. 2 touchdowns in under 30 seconds. The Eagles are killing it in this quarter. After getting down the field, but not after chewing a lot of time off the clock, the Commanders score some garbage time points and a toe-tap 2-point conversion from none other than former Eagle Zach Ertz to make it an 8-point game. Washington would go for the onside kick, but thankfully Dallas Goedert recovers it, and the Eagles offense just takes a knee to end the game. Final score, 26-18. Eagles win their 6th straight and maintain their first place status in the NFC East with an 8-2 record. Jalen Hurts would finish 18 for 28 for 221 yards, no touchdowns through the air, but also 0 turnovers. He would also go for 10 carries for 29 yards and a touchdown. Saquon Barkley would finish with an astounding 26 carries for 146 yards and 2 touchdowns, while also completing 2 receptions for 52 yards. Another baller game for number 26. All right, before we get into the overreactions, opinions, and discussion about that, let's go over some Eagles news real quick. First off, edge rusher Bryce Huff will miss possibly a significant amount of time after undergoing surgery on his injured wrist. He had this injury in the game against the Jags, I think actually right before that game, causing him to see less snaps for that game. He could be back by the end of the season, but regardless of when he's back, we're hoping for a smooth recovery. The Eagles have opened up the 21-day practice window for wide receiver Britton Covey. Yes, we haven't heard that name in a long time. Good to hear it back. Covey suffered a broken bone in his shoulder, sidelining him week 3 against the Saints. He practiced Wednesday, but we'll have to wait and see if he'll suit up for Sunday's game. Regardless, though, it'll be great to see number 18 back in action. All right, let's dive into those discussions, opinions, and overreactions about that Week 11 win. Starting with the offense, I'm just not sure exactly what was going on in that first half, but we couldn't get shit done. It was the first time since Week 3 against the Saints that we did not score a touchdown in the first half. Jake Elliott also missed 2 field goals. It was a hot mess. We ended the half with 3 points, despite playing better statistically than Washington in nearly every category. I'm talking first downs, net rushing yards, third down conversion rates, etc., except in one category, and that was red zone efficiency. Probably the one that matters the most, since points are winning games and not yards. We were able to excel in categories that get you to the red zone, but not actually perform in the red zone. For the whole game, we went 1 for 3 in the red zone. Now, however, that's mainly due to our scores coming from outside of the red zone, thanks to big rushing gains from Saquon Barkley. I do love the adjustments that Kellen Moore made in the fourth quarter because it was efficient and it got us to victory. I just don't love the timing of it. The fourth quarter is way too late to make in-game adjustments like that. Most of the time, it's not going to succeed the way it did for us. So I just wish it was a lot earlier. If we're not having any success after like the first quarter and a half maybe, that's when we should be making some in-game adjustments. We've been in this situation before where we adjusted too late and there just wasn't enough time for us to come back. But anyway, back to the offense from this game. Saquon, man. Saquon continues to be an absolute champ. Another near 200 total yard game for him and 2 touchdowns. Could have been 3 if he hadn't been tackled at the 1-yard line. He continues to be the driving force for this offense, hands down. Yes, you do have excellent players in Hurts, Goddard, Brown, Smith, etc., but Saquon puts up the stats and the scores, despite having 9 touches in which he's tackled at the 1-yard line all year long. That's 9 missed potential touchdowns because he's getting tackled at the 1. I feel sorry for that. He would be in the MVP conversation if all those are touchdowns. I mean, he already is, but that would be like no question MVP right there. We haven't had a running back MVP in a while, I feel like. So if those are touchdowns, you'd be like, hands down. Forget Derrick Henry. He would be the one in the MVP conversation. But anyway, I digress. In this game, I was a little worried about Hurts after that big hit, going into concussion protocol and having those plays missing wide open receivers. But when you think about it, plenty of QBs miss wide open receivers all the time, so that I'm specifically not worried about. My main priority was his health, and I'm glad to see he cleared concussion protocol from the independent neurologist and had a much better second half. He was on Good Morning America, and he seemed like his usual self. He was promoting his foundation. So I'm thankful for his health, which seems to be in good status right now, and looking forward to see him play this Sunday night. Shifting gears to our defense, first things first, Quinton Bay, however you want to call it, Quinyon Mitchell continues to lock down your number 1 receiver. Against Washington's number 1 receiver in Terry McLaurin, rookie cornerback Quinyon Mitchell held him to 0 catches for 0 yards. McLaurin had 1 catch all night long for like 10 yards, and that was against Cooper DeJean playing outside of his typical area. I know there's been a lot of talk about the run game and how the performance was from the run defense, especially in the fourth quarter drive with Zach Bond making that stop on 4th and 2, which was phenomenal, by the way. But just listen to what our secondary did to Washington's receivers. Terry McLaurin, Olamide Zaccheaus, Noah Brown, and De'Ami Brown. All of these receivers were held to just 1 catch each. And then they held Luke McCaffrey to 0 catches. The majority of their receptions came at the hands of the tight end and running backs. Our secondary as a whole should get just as much credit as our run defense. Imagine having 5 wide receivers, like players listed as wide receivers, not tight ends or running backs acting as wide receivers in certain plays. No. 5 actual wide receivers for the entire game being held to just 4 total catches for 28 yards and no touchdowns. Plus the diving interception for Reed Blankenship, that was just incredible as well. I love how they are all just like absolutely identical. It's crazy. Pre-bye week, I was thinking we were going to have another dog shit defense year. I don't know what the hell happened during the bye week, but the total defense, especially the secondary, has been on fire. As for our rush defense, they were able to hold Brian Robinson Jr. to under 65 yards, Jaden Daniels to under 20, and both Eckler and McNichols to under 10 yards apiece. Less than 100 total yards on the ground. Our run defense's only mistake was not being able to stop them in the red zone in the first quarter. Our rush defense had 2 players with over 10 tackles in our linebacking team of Bond and Dean. Reed Blankenship also had 10 tackles, but obviously he's the secondary. An excellent job against a tough opponent. Can't wait to see what these guys do against the Rams. All right, before we go on to the Week 12 preview, got to talk about the elephant in the room, and that is Jake Elliott's performance. A very, very atypical night with 2 missed field goals and 1 missed extra point. I was complaining about him all night long. I'm not going to cap to y'all. Jake the Make is his name for a reason, but he was just off, man. He was just completely off. But after collecting my thoughts and looking at the other games across the league, there was some weird voodoo shit going on with a lot of kickers recently. In addition to Elliott's poor performance, Baltimore's kicker Justin Tucker also missed 2 kicks within his typical range. Bengals kicker Evan McPherson missed 2 field goals. Cowboys kicker Brandon Aubrey missed 1 of 2 kicks. 49ers kicker Jake Moody missed 3 kicks last week. So yeah, I'm not sure what the hell's going on with the kickers recently and why they keep shanking shit. So I can't be too mad at Jake alone, considering all these other kickers were having equally bad weeks. Hopefully this hex or curse or whatever the hell's been going on NFL kickers this week will be lifted and we see Jake back in his typical fashion. All right, let's dive into this Week 12 preview. The Eagles get another primetime slot after a mini bye week. This time the Birds are heading across the country to the City of Angels to take on the Los Angeles Rams at SoFi Stadium. The Birds are coming off a 4th quarter comeback win versus their toughest opponent of the season in the Washington Commanders, while the Rams are coming off a 10-point win over the Minnesota Vikings. Here's what I think that we need to do to get the win on the road this week. All right, starting offensively, we should use heavy motion to either add a slot receiver or motion the running back out as a receiver or motion the tight end out from the line and act as a 4th receiver, sticking to flat and seam routes to aid our pass game. The Rams primarily use cover 3 defense just under 50% of the time. It's the most type of defense that they use. And with our receiver speed and route running capabilities, this will put us at an advantage numerically and in the one-on-one matchups, to which I have confidence that at the very least, A.J. Brown and Devontae can win most of their matchups against the DBs. Plus, the Rams secondary has not been great this year, allowing Patriots quarterback Drake May to throw for 2 touchdowns in the air and have an over 100 rating. Washington primarily uses cover 2. However, the Eagles typically perform a lot better against cover 3, thanks to the strengths of our receivers with speed and yards after catch. So as long as the Eagles routinely exploit the flaws within the cover 3 defensive scheme, our offense can shine. For our quarterback, if he doesn't see anything open, just run it and make that call quickly. The Rams have a strong pass rush, but gave up nearly 28 rushing yards to Drake May on the ground last week. Jalen is a much better rushing quarterback. So if he can't find an open receiver and that rush is coming, escape the pocket and get the hell out of there as fast as possible. Or just dump it off to Barkley, because the Rams haven't favored well against running backs as receivers either. Now, on the defense side of the ball for us, our corners, Mitchell, Slay, and DeJean, need to be on their A game. Quinyon and Darius are likely matching up directly against Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua, with DeJean likely handling Puka if he goes in motion in the slot. Both of these receivers are coming off 100-plus yard games last week and are extremely reliable. Quinyon has been amazing at shutting down teams' number one wide receiver, so I have faith that he'll perform well against Kupp. If Slay lines up against Puka, he'll need to have great communication and consistent communication with Cooper DeJean, especially since Sean McVay likes to motion Nacua, who can excel in both the outside and in the slot. And within the slot motion, DeJean will need to be able to read these motions quickly enough to prevent the quick pass outs to Nacua in that slot position. He also needs to watch out for these motions that end up in a run block from Puka and not fall into that trap, because McVay likes to use Nacua in many types of ways, from run blocking, as a slot receiver, as a wideout, you name it. Communication is going to be key and will be extremely vital in order to shut down their pass game. In the run game, Rams running back Kyren Williams has been a touchdown machine earlier in the season, but hasn't had one in the past 4 games. So I anticipate a heavy pass game from Stafford, to which our run defense will need to come into play as well. Stafford has not been sacked in 3 out of his last 4 games. Jaden Daniels is a good rushing quarterback who can reliably scramble out of the pocket and make the rushing yards if he needs to. Matthew Stafford? Not so much. He has a whopping -7 rushing yards on the season so far. So if we can get to the quarterback and our secondary can hold their own, I don't see Stafford having enough time to get out, make any type of rushing play at all. This is not something that he does. So I think we'll need to blitz a little bit, put more pressure on him. Corners, locking down those receivers, and then Stafford will be under a lot more pressure than he was against New England, and I could see him getting sacked at least twice this game. And probably the big thing that I think that our defense needs to do is to stop giving up yards, points in garbage time. Like, I know we were up 2 scores with under a minute, so the likelihood Washington could have taken the lead 1 in that time frame was next to near impossible. But we saw what happened in the Atlanta game. We gave up hella yards with like under 2 minutes, maybe even less time than that, and it led to them winning the game by 1 point. They were within their own 25-yard line or some shit like that, and were able to march down the field 75 yards in that game to get the win. With the Commanders' last-minute touchdown, our defense gave up 70 yards across 15 plays to get the score, in 4 minutes and 10 seconds to be exact. If our defense is going to be as elite, then they need to be showing that they can be elite 100% of the game, not 98%, not 99%. Because if we were up by less points than we were, that touchdown could have made a much different outcome in that game. All right, y'all, before we end this episode, I'm going to give you my predictions of this Week 12 game. The Eagles have been successful on the road, and in Los Angeles, I'm sure there's still bound to be hella Eagles fans out there in the stadium. I think their road success continues this week in a tight game, as I'm predicting a 28-21 win at SoFi, with our receivers getting more of the action this week. I'm predicting both A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith to have at least 1 touchdown apiece, and then 2 TDs on the ground, 1 from Saquon and 1 from Hurts, as Hurts has been dominant on the ground in his rushing touchdowns this season. All right, y'all, that is it for this week's episode. Thank you so much for joining us. Do not forget to like, subscribe, or follow us on YouTube, X, Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok by searching at 2nd and 15, or by the full name 2nd and 15, a Philadelphia Eagles fan podcast. You can also find the audio for each and every single episode releasing Thursday mornings on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, Player FM, or wherever you get your podcasts. This episode, the entire show, and the Old City Sports Network are sponsored by Righteous Felon Craft Jerky. Use our promo code OCSN for 15% off your order at righteousfelon.com. We are also brought to you by SeatGeek. Use promo code Old City Sports Network, all one word, for $20 off of your first purchase. 2nd and 15 and Old City Sports Network are also brought to you by Decals by Aaron and Warlord Beard Oil. head on over to warlordbeardoil.com and use our promo code OLDSPORTS, all caps, for 15% off your beard oils, washes, lotions, soaps, whatever the hell you need. And finally, head on over to oldcitysports.com to help contribute to the production of the podcast and the network as a whole by purchasing some of our awesome merch, including t-shirts, hoodies, dishware, and more. We'll see y'all next week. Don't forget to tune into the game this Sunday night, 8:15 Eastern Standard Time on NBC. Don't forget to stay fly like an eagle, and as always, go Birds.